Alright guys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, and non-binary people. This video is an update for the one we published some 3 years ago. There are some changes that have been introduced since then, but overall the publishing process is the same. So in this video we will show you how to create a developer account, set up your app listing, build your mobile game in Unity, and submit it for review. Now before we move on, generally speaking, to build an app to be published in App Store you need a Mac. If you don't have one, I believe it is still possible to build your app, but it will probably take some jumping through hoops, which is unfortunately outside the scope of this video. Alright, so let's get to work, shall we? So first of all, we go to Apple Developer and click Account. Here we need to sign in. You can use any Apple ID to do that, but I recommend creating a separate Apple ID for development purposes, which you can do right here by pressing this Create link. When you have your Apple ID, you sign in here. To see this developer dashboard, where Apple is graciously offering you to enroll in the Apple Developer Program for $99 a year. If you don't do that, you won't be able to publish your apps, and if you do not renew your subscription every year, your apps will no longer be available in the App Store. If you find this brutal, I agree with you, but it is what it is. Alright, once you've shelled out $99, your developer dashboard will evolve into this. But before we do anything here, we're going to start installing Xcode that we will need later to build and upload our app. So if you don't have Xcode yet, you open App Store on your Mac, look up Xcode, start installation, and put App Store away for now. Now we're going to create a certificate by clicking Certificates here. Apple uses certificates to verify you as a developer, meaning the purpose of a certificate is to prove that you are the legit developer and not an imposter. Alright, since we're interested in publishing an app, we need a distribution certificate. So we check Apple distribution here. Now to issue a certificate, we first need to create a certificate signing request file. And we need to do that on the Mac that we will use to build our app. For this, we open the Keychain Access app, which is a built-in app on any Mac computer. Here we go Keychain Access, Certificate Assistant, Request a Certificate. Fill out the email and common name fields, and choose Save to Disk here. It doesn't really matter where you save your request file as long as you can find it on your computer. I usually save everything to my desktop and then move elsewhere if I need to. So now we go back to our developer account, hit Choose File, and provide the file we just generated in Keychain Access. Then hit Continue, and download the resultant certificate file. Again, doesn't matter where you save it to as long as you can find it on your computer. And if you go back to the certificates page, you will see your newly created certificate. And you can re-download it later from here if you happen to need it again. Now you open the folder that contains your certificate file and double-click it to add it to the Keychain app. Now here, if your keychain is set to iCloud, you will get an error, so make sure you set it to Login. And hit Add. And now if you open Keychain Access, you will see the certificate you just added, and you will see that it's not trusted, which will get fixed automatically when we get to building our app in Xcode. Speaking of Xcode, you might want to check on the installation in App Store. It finished downloading for me, so I hit Open. Agree? Choose iOS here since I'm interested in building a mobile app. You can choose other options as well if you need to. Hit Download and Install, and move it aside again. Now we go back to the developer page, and click this Identifiers. Here we're going to create an ID for a future app. If this is your first time publishing an app, you're not going to have anything here. So don't worry if your list of identifiers is empty. So we click this plus button. And since we're publishing an app, we need an app ID. So with this option selected, we hit Continue. Here we choose App. App Clip is just a part of an app that demonstrates some of the features. Here we provide a description, which is just for you to be able to tell the IDs apart. And here we need to provide a bundle ID, which should look like something like this, where domain name is essentially your developer name, while app name is the name of your app. Note that bundle IDs cannot contain spaces. Alright, here I have a list of additional features that you might want to make available for your app. Then hit Continue, and Register. To see your newly created app ID here, Next, we need to create a provisioning profile, which is similar to certificate that we made earlier, but while certificates are used to validate the developer, provisioning profiles are used to validate an individual app made by that developer. Meaning you can use one certificate to create multiple apps, but each app has to have its own provisioning profile. So we go to the Profiles page and hit this plus button. Now, since we're interested in publishing an app, we need a distribution profile. And since we're publishing a mobile app, we need an App Store Connect profile. Here, we select an app ID for which we're making a provisioning profile, and it should be the one we just created, which for me is this test app. And here, we choose a certificate that we're going to use to sign the app, which should be the one we created earlier. And we hit Continue. Name our profile, which again will be used for internal purposes only. Hit Generate, and Download. Next, we're going to export our app in Unity to be able to build it in Xcode. But before we do that, copy this app ID since we're going to need it later. So in Unity, we go File, Build Settings. First of all, make sure you have scenes to build here. And this Unity icon next to iOS. If that's not the case, select iOS and hit the Switch Platform button. And when the switching is complete, we open Player Settings. Here we provide our developer name and the app name. We also need to specify the version, but if this is the first time you publish this app, you can leave it at the default 1.0. Here we need to provide an app icon that will be displayed on the mobile device when you install your app. Please note that for App Store, the size of the icon must be 1024 by 1024 pixels. And to be able to set it here, you need to have the icon file in your Unity project. Now we close Player Settings and hit Build. Choose the location to store the resulting files. And when the building is complete, Unity will open the folder that contains the resulting files, which we now need to build in Xcode. So we double-click this project file, and it opens in Xcode. Now I'm using Xcode version 15.4, so it might look somewhat different for you if you have a different version. Alright, so we select our project named Unity iPhone. We can choose supported platforms here by adding or deleting items. Here we can set the app category, set the app name, version, and build number. Now what's important to note here is that you can upload multiple builds with the same version, as long as the build number is unique. So you can start at 1, and if later you need to rebuild your app but you don't want to change the version, you can simply increment the build number. There's more stuff on this page that you might be interested in, and when you're done, let's switch to the Signing and Capabilities tab. First of all, make sure this automatically managed signing box is off. Next here, we provide the app ID that we created earlier, the one that I asked you to copy. So we paste it here. Here, we choose to import a provisioning profile and choose the file we downloaded earlier from the developer page. And it should work. One thing that you might have noticed here is this unknown name, which happens because I haven't signed in Xcode, which we can do later. So now we go Product, Archive, and wait for Xcode to finish building a project. Here you have to type in the passwords you used to log into your Mac. You need to do that in order to access the certificate that we added to Keychain earlier. And when the building process is complete, Xcode will open this Archives window with our build that we can now upload to our App Store listing. But before that, we need to create that listing. Otherwise, Xcode won't know where to upload this build. To create an app listing, we need to use App Store Connect. And one way to navigate there is going back to the developer dashboard by clicking this developer icon and this account button. And we're finally back to the developer dashboard. There must be a better way to navigate to this page, because if there isn't, it's pretty messed up. Anyways, we click Apps here, hit this plus button, and choose to create a new app. An app bundle, just like its name suggests, is a bunch of apps as opposed to a single app. Anyways, here we select the target platforms, specify the name of the app that will be used in App Store. So make sure you provide a meaningful name for your app here. Choose the primary language, choose the app ID that we're creating this listing for, provide an SKU, which is similar to app ID but is used for internal purposes. And lastly, user access. This is mainly for the large organizations with a lot of people having access to the App Store account. Because that's not my case, I go with full access. And we hit Create. And here we're going to need to provide a ton of info to complete our app listing, but we'll do that later. The main reason we created this app listing, as some of you might remember, is to be able to upload our build in Xcode, so let's do that now. If you accidentally close this window, you can open it by going Window, Organizer. So we hit Distribute App, make sure we have App Store Connect selected here, and hit Distribute. To get an error that we can fix by signing into Xcode, which we can do by clicking this Manage Accounts button, and sign in with the same Apple ID that we used to issue the certificate earlier. Here we provide access to the certificate again, and if you're curious, you can see that now the unknown team name in Xcode got resolved. And if you open Keychain Access, you will see that our certificate is no longer untrusted. Anyways, when uploading is complete, we go back to App Store Connect. Then open this Test Flight tab to see that our build is now being processed. And when it's done processing, we will see that it's missing compliance. So let's click Manage here to specify some encryption-related stuff. Now, if your app itself transmits data, or you're using third-party modules such as Unity Ads or Unity Analytics that do, your app most likely uses standard encryption. So we check this option, but I do recommend double-checking this part for your app. So we click Next to get a trick question. If you say your app is going to be available in France, you will need to do additional paperwork with the French authorities, which might take some time. So my recommendation, if you want to do it right, is select No, make your app unavailable in France, then do the paperwork and resubmit your app. I will show you how to make your app unavailable in France in a bit. Alright, so we hit Save to see that our build is ready to submit. So we go back to the Distribution tab, where we need to upload screenshots for our app. What's annoying here is that those screenshots must have certain dimensions. For the 6.7-inch iPhone, it has to be either 1290 by 2796 for the vertical orientation, or 2796 by 1290 for the horizontal. For the 6.5-inch iPhone, it has to be one of these, but you can reuse the screenshots for the 6.7-inch iPhone here. And for the 5.5-inch iPhone, it has to be 1242 by 2208 or 2208 by 1242. Now, luckily, you don't really need to take those screenshots on actual devices. You can do that directly in Unity, for which we have a separate video on this channel. You can find the link in the description. In addition to screenshots, we need to fill out promotional text, description, keywords, and support URL fields. This is what we did for our game. Now, for the support URL, you need to provide a link to a web page that provides info about your game. What you can do here is you can check existing app listings on the App Store and use their app support pages as a reference. This is what our support page looks like. Now, you don't have to create a separate website to publish a support page. You can use free web hosting services like Google Sites. Next, we need to select a build that we want to publish by clicking this Add Build button and choosing the build we've just uploaded. In the App Review Information section, we need to provide contact info to be used by the Apple review person if needed. If your game requires login, make sure you provide login credentials for the reviewer to be able to run your game. And lastly, you can choose whether you want to publish your game manually or automatically. I prefer doing that myself, so I usually choose manual. And once you're done with this, make sure you save the changes. And we're moving on to the next part of the app listing, which is app information, where we need to set up some stuff, such as category, content rights, and age rating. For the content rights, you basically need to confirm that your app does not illegally show any content owned by someone else. If your app does use some third-party content such as images, audio, or video, and you have all necessary rights, you choose the first option. And if your app does not use any copyright materials, you choose No. Next, to determine the age rating for your app, you need to complete a questionnaire. Again, this is not a universal instruction and it must be specific to your project. A little advice here. If you're not sure which option you need to choose none. And if Apple disagrees with you, you can change it later. Luckily, unlike Google, Apple usually responds pretty quickly, but then again, $99 a year. Now, remember the availability in France thing? This is where you'll need to upload the documentation that you get from the French authorities if you decide to take that route. If you want to make your app unavailable in certain countries, you can do that on this pricing and availability page. But before you do that, make sure you save the information you entered here by clicking Save. So here, you click the Set Up Availability button, choose specific countries or regions, and select where you want your app to be available. And when you're done, go back to the app information page. If this is the first time you're uploading an app, you will probably be asked to indicate whether you're a trader or not, which I've already done for my developer account. If you haven't, this part might look different for you. If you made your app available in China, you might need an ICP number. To check whether your app needs one, you can click this Learn More link. Next, this section is for in-app subscriptions, and if you have those in your app, you will need to generate a code here. Now here you can find the link to your future App Store listing. So when your app goes live, you can navigate to the listing by clicking this link. Next, we're moving on to the app privacy page. Here we need to provide a URL to our privacy policy. Just like with the app support page that was mentioned earlier in this video, you can check existing app listings in the App Store and use their developers' privacy policies as a reference. This is what ours looks like. And again, to make your privacy policy publicly available, you can use a free web hosting service like Google Sites. Another pain in the butt is the data collection survey that we can access by pressing this Get Started button. Just like with encryption, even if you do not collect user data, Unity might be doing that. For example, our game is using Unity Ads, which does collect user data and perform tracking. If that's your case as well, you should answer yes here. Now, since we answered yes, we need to specify what kind of data we collect. Luckily, Unity Ads provides this information, which you can find on their official website. I will also add a link to this page to the video description. Now, if you're using other third-party modules that collect data, you need to find a similar disclosure for all of the modules that you use and report it here. Okay, here we can see that Unity Ads does not collect contact info, or health and fitness data, or financial data, but it does collect course location data. So in the survey, we check course location. We also check customer support, user ID, and device ID. Purchases, product interaction, advertising data, and other usage data. Performance data, and other data. And hit Save. And now for each data type that we selected, we need to provide additional details. For example, for course location, we indicate that it's collected for third-party advertising and analytics, that it's not linked to user identity, and by extension cannot be used for tracking purposes. Now we hit Save and proceed to the customer support section. That is used for app functionality, not linked to user, and not used for tracking. User ID is used for app functionality, is linked to user, but not used for tracking. Device ID is used for advertising and analytics, is linked to user, and might be used for tracking. Purchase history is used for advertising and analytics, is linked to user, but not used for tracking. Product interaction data is used for advertising and analytics, not linked to user, not used for tracking. Advertising data is used for advertising and analytics, is linked to user, but not used for tracking. Same for other usage data. Performance data is used for app functionality and analytics, is linked to user, not used for tracking. And other data types used for app functionality, advertising, and analytics, linked to user, and not used for tracking. And we're finally done with this excruciating task, so we hit Publish. Now, if you're not planning on monetizing or marketing your app just yet, you're pretty much done with your app listing. Otherwise, you might want to explore these growth and marketing and monetization sections. And when you're done, go back to the Release page, where you can submit your app for review by clicking this button. If there's some essential information missing, you will see the issues that need to be fixed before you can submit your app for review. And these are the things that we did talk about earlier, but they skipped because they're app or developer specific. Anyways, once your app has been successfully submitted for review, you just wait for a response, fix the issues if there are any, and when your app is ready to go, you will see this release button here. And if you press it, your app will go live. And this is pretty much it. Now, if you're curious about the game that I'm using as an example in this video, you can download it from Apple's App Store or Google's Play Market. The links are in the video description. We made this game as a part of a game-making video course that you can find on Udemy. The link is also in the description. And this is it for this video. See you in the next one. Bye.